I spent 3 months in this piece and I didn't record the process. But little did I know, 9 butterflies later, it would leave me with the inspiration to paint yet another 2. Welcome and hello, my name is Patience. I'm an Australian artist inspired by all things storytelling, lore and nostalgia. And I'm really glad and excited to have you join me today as I share the process behind the creation of 2 little butterfly paintings. Maybe you're working on something of your own, or maybe you're just here to hang out for a bit. Either way, I thought I'd try something new and give a voiceover a shot. I haven't quite done this before, but I thought it would be fun to talk a bit about my thoughts throughout the process. As I hinted at before, the story behind it all, this all started after spending, I think, around 3 quiet months working on a larger painting made up of 9 Australian butterflies in total. Minus 2, technically. Turns out the monarch and the cabbage moth aren't actually native to Australia, but I feel like I've seen those 2 more than any of the others, especially cabbage moths. They are everywhere in summer, invading our garden, so I did make an exception and I snuck them in there anyway. And I didn't film that one. I started to at first, but not very well, and then eventually I sort of let it go because I knew it was going to take a decent chunk of time. Oddly enough, finishing that big piece actually left me inspired to go as far as painting 2 more, as if 9 wasn't enough already, but I'm really glad I did because I think both of these turned out pretty well. When it came to prepping my panels and laying down the background, I wanted to echo the same warm, faded effect I created in the larger painting. I did have some acrylic paint left over from the previous painting, and then it was basically a process of pushing and pulling, layering light brush strokes, trying to maintain that hazy softness and the subtle blending to gradually build up the background. Once I had the backgrounds ready, I spent some time browsing through a website. I'd definitely recommend having a look through yourself at some point if butterflies interest you. It's called Australian Butterflies, and I'll pop the link in the description. It's this incredibly detailed online library of Australian butterfly species, all photographed by Martin Purvis. I was honestly so happy when I stumbled across his work. Eventually, after a pretty tough round of elimination from my little shortlist, I narrowed it down to 3. For the first butterfly, I decided on the green-banded blue. It has these beautiful iridescent accents along the outer border of its wings. As for the second, I was torn. I couldn't choose between the yellow admiral and the orange bush brown. The admiral had this lovely creamy tone on its wings, which I really liked. But the bush brown had a more playful vibrancy and these little eye-like patterns. That being said, I threw up a quick poll on my Instagram stories showing both of the options, and just like that I had my answer. I could kind of already confidently guess which one it would be, to be honest, so it wasn't a big surprise, but I was happy either way. Now, I'm sorry to do this to you, but I'm not going to reveal the winner just yet. For now, let's get started with painting the green-banded blue. When I think back on what initially inspired these 2 pieces, beyond the momentum from the previous painting, I think at the heart of it, it really just came down to the fact that I just find them a pretty subject matter. There is more I want to say on that, but I'll come back to that topic in a moment. As I kept painting and thinking things over, I realised I'd almost accidentally expanded on some of the themes I had explored in my Year 12 final artwork just last year, without even meaning to. That piece ended up being titled The Golden Child and explored the strange, distorted relationship we have with time, especially during that shift between childhood and adolescence. Actually, I think I still have the didactic I wrote for it. I'll read that one out. The painting examines the distortional relationship with time during the pivotal transition from childhood into adulthood. The golden child symbolises an idealised youth, whereas a muted purple figure represents the lost innocence and the uncertainties of adulthood. Through this, the work reflects the conflicting coexistence of emotions, such as the longing for a perfect past and the future unknown. And if you look closely, there it is, I added a butterfly on her shirt. Why? Honestly, I don't really know why I painted half of the things I did in high school. I was mostly just making things up to fit the criteria. But maybe in the context of the theme, it was my way of subtly symbolising change. Like she's lived her time as a little caterpillar, and now she's entering that slow, quiet transformation inside her chrysalis, shifting into this unfamiliar, slightly newer version of herself. So I guess it all circles back to that same association with transformation, curiosity, and dreams. Honestly, it's a concept I really adore and one that seems to show up again and again, even in something as simple and innocent as a child chasing butterflies. It's a little motif that actually appears surprisingly quite often in the media as well, especially in films made for younger audiences. Disney, for example, comes to mind. Off the top of my head, and I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure there are moments like that in Winnie the Pooh, Anastasia, Alice in Wonderland, I think. Oh, and Bambi, of course. He's just a baby who can barely walk, and yet he's completely enchanted by the world around him. Again, all of this was completely unintentional. Maybe I'm just making it all up, but it's still interesting to connect those dots. It's like a kind of quiet, year-long evolution of butterflies across my work. Anyway, back to what I'm doing here. I wanted to build on a texture I'd played around with before, specifically on the Maclay swallowtail in the larger piece. I'd loaded just the end of my brush with paint and lightly dabbed away, so if you look at it from the side, it created this subtle raised texture, and I really liked the way it helped blur the transition between light and dark. I ended up adapting that technique later in this painting too, especially in the coloured sections to help emphasise the shimmer on the wings, but I tried my best to keep it soft and subtle because I didn't want it to become too busy. With the final details on the green banded blue finished, it's time to move on to butterfly number 2. I actually took a screenshot of the poll results, so here's the original post. Alright, this is your chance to guess. Which butterfly do you think won the popular vote? Got it? If you guessed the orange bush brown, then look at you! That's exactly what happened, which I was very happy with, so there we go. Coming back to the I want to paint this because I find it visually nice to look at idea. All meaning aside, at the end of the day, sometimes it's just exactly what I want to do. Whether it's the way something looks, or even just imagining how I might go about painting it. The colours, the texture, the layering, and that's what gets me excited. And I think, honestly, these two butterflies are one of those cases. Everything I'd mentioned earlier, the symbolism, the connections to past work, all of that came to me afterward. It wasn't actually something I planned going in. Coming out of high school last year, I can't actually think of anything off the top of my head I didn't create for school purposes in maybe the last 3 years. And so naturally, just with the art curriculum and all that, I had to somewhat be constantly creating intentionally and justify each decision I was making in my work. And I have to be able to communicate that both verbally and written in my folio. Not saying this is all a bad thing, by the way. It was very beneficial for me in many ways, and I also really enjoyed it. But before that, I might not have been making anything deep or conceptual. I was also, 15 at that point? But I was creating more than I do now because I wasn't thinking about it as much. I was drawing simply because I loved the subject, whether it was, I don't know, Harry Potter, or a random photo I found on Pinterest. And honestly, I think there's a quiet kind of joy in that, in just making something because you want to. And my goal for myself is to slowly find my way back to that. This is a topic I could probably talk about for hours. This looming pressure in the art world to assign meaning or purpose to every creative thing we do. For me, it affects me most in regards to creative burnout and momentum. I'm also a pretty bad procrastinator in general, so the mix isn't great. But sometimes I'll have a small idea for something I want to paint, but then I start questioning it a little too much. It's like a habit of asking myself, if there's no obvious or deep meaning, then where's the value? If there's no message, is it worth my time? And by then, I've talked myself out of it before I even started. So it's something I'm trying to unlearn, or at least understand better with every piece. If you're an artist yourself listening and have any thoughts on this topic, then please feel free to leave a comment. I'm really curious to know what other perspectives you have. don't get me wrong, I do really enjoy weaving storytelling into my work, but sometimes trying to tailor an idea just to fit a certain message, it becomes a recipe for, again, procrastination. I think a lot of it comes down to feeling like I need to explain myself. But at the end of the day, it's my practice. I don't have to sit down and write a little didactic for every single piece I make. Emotions can be so strong, yet so difficult to express in words, which I know is a fundamental of why art exists, to do exactly that, to communicate something without needing to say a single word. So maybe, even if I can't explain what a piece means in neat verbal terms, or whether I'm even aware of it at all, maybe it still has meaning. It's a bit like finishing a really good book, for any fellow readers out there. Sometimes you reach that last sentence and you're left with this wave of emotion you just can't quite describe. And you just sit there quietly, processing what you've just experienced. There's this sort of sweet and sour ache, a longing to experience it all over again, just to try and understand it better and to find the right words for it. But you just can't. It's hard to explain, but maybe you know what I mean. It's like, back to my paintings, I rarely know the reason or meaning behind my works myself, but it exists and I'm happy to leave it at that and move on. Trying to put it all into words, especially writing out didactics, folio work and whatnot, I would write the same sentence out so many times that it just never quite felt like they were the right words I needed to use to say what I wanted to say. I obviously have to settle on something, but I still don't feel they're right. Oh my gosh, on theme, it's like chasing butterflies that you can never quite catch. But at the end of the day, the visuals and the feelings of my work still exist, and that's enough. It's like me talking to you now. These were the kind of thoughts I had during the process, and I've done my very best to explain them, but I still feel like I haven't quite captured what I mean. Individual experience is such a strange thing. No matter how much you try to explain it, or how desperately you want someone else to understand what you're feeling, they never will. It's unique to you and will only be felt and experienced by you. No one else will see what you see when you look at a painting. No one else will feel what you feel when you read a book or watch a film. That experience, that emotion, it lives and dies with you. How insightful was that? And here we are, the green banded blue and the orange bush brown side by side. I don't think I could be more pleased with how they turned out. I adore each one in their own way, and I hope you've enjoyed watching them come to life. If you've got thoughts on anything I've mentioned, or your own creative experiences, I'd genuinely love to hear them. Otherwise, thank you for being here, for listening to my little rambles. I hope it's been of some company to you. And if you enjoyed the video and would like to see more, you're most welcome to subscribe. It's always greatly appreciated. And just a little note, I am really excited to share. Both of these pieces will actually be available in the coming weeks, on the 25th of November to be exact. There'll also be prints as a more budget-friendly option, if one of them happens to speak to you and you'd like to invite them into your home. Now, one last question. If you were out on a walk and both of these butterflies suddenly appeared in front of you, which one would you chase?